Now, I'm sure that many of you out there have already seen South Park joining the Pandaverse, which actually takes multiple shots at Disney's current status as a company and exactly what kind of failures that they have faced throughout all of 2023 and beyond, and what Kathleen Kennedy has done to brands out there like Star Wars, Marvel, etc., etc., even Indiana Jones at that, from the Dial of Destiny that released back in June of this year. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, there's one thing that I think that Trey Parker and Matt Stone are brilliant at doing, is that they have no care in the world about anything or anybody when it comes to making their events and or episodes, and they just go all out. Now, I did mention in my last post that I really do feel that Trey Parker and Matt Stone could have gone a little bit harder on Kathleen Kennedy, but that's about the only tiny bit of criticism that I really had for them. Everything else aside, I think that Parker and Stone did a very good job at really making it public about what's been going on with Disney and what Kathleen Kennedy has done to the current status of Lucasfilm. Now, with that being put out there, one major development has a lot to do with exactly how she is actually going against South Park now behind closed doors, and her plan to take down South Park Studios and Comedy Central for their plans for continued use of joining the Pandaverse and follow-ups to that event, as well as more jabs on the way from Comedy Central to Disney. We already know that this is basically Parker and Stone's motive now, is that they see Disney as a gold mine to the point where they want to keep on mocking the company for the years to come. So let's discuss, shall we? Now, with South Park Pandaverse already creating a spike in subscribers for Paramount Plus, one major development has to do with Kathleen Kennedy and new updates surrounding her actions going against South Park right now behind the scenes. One crucial part of this development is that, as it turns out, Kathleen Kennedy is already in the process of gathering the entire Lucasfilm leadership team, which involves the vice president, the executive vice presidents, and senior vice presidents, and more, to go head-to-head with Comedy Central, where Kennedy is organizing a response that will be unveiled to the general public again via, of course, Lucasfilm to Comedy Central from the entire Lucasfilm team. But that in response to South Park Studios, she also made a quick approval to expedite new Star Wars announcements that will up the ante and double down on their DEI agenda to really kind of send a message. Everything that South Park essentially mocked, Kennedy is now doubling down on those actions to send the message to not just Comedy Central, but also to the public who are in favor of Trey and Matt's parody of Lucasfilm, Disney, Bob Iger, and Kennedy. Now, the statement that will be released by the entire Lucasfilm team, which will be led by Kathleen Kennedy, is planned to drop sometime later this month and will be presented by Kathleen Kennedy, Lin-Manuel Brennan, the vice president, and Carrie Beck, the executive vice president, just for starters. Kennedy's plan is to call out Comedy Central for being morally wrong with their parody, not just against her, but also the concept of DEI, which involves the concepts of race swapping and gender swapping. Now, guys, let me just say one thing about this before I move on, is the fact that this just goes to show you how hurt Kathleen Kennedy and her ego really has become, to the point where she has to do these things by organizing the entire leadership team now, instead of just herself like previously, to go against South Park and to really kind of attempt to make a mockery of them back. Now, we already discussed about how Bob Iger is doing something of his own with the Disney Board of Directors, and this is nothing different. This is basically the same exact thing by Kathleen Kennedy in taking a slightly different approach. Basically what she's trying to do is that she's trying to call them out, not just by herself, but also, this time, with the entire Lucasfilm leadership team, which is not necessarily large per se. I mean, it's quite confined, but they want to get everyone on board to really kind of just point the finger at Comedy Central and South Park Studios, Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And the reason why they are acting on this, and I talked about this before in the past couple of days, is that Parker and Stone, they did make it public behind the scenes to Disney that they do plan to keep on creating parodies of Disney, Mickey Mouse, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, and the board, because they see this as a great way to kind of reach out to their fans, to their audience, and to the public who very well share opinions. And, you know, I think at the same exact time, this is well deserved because Disney was asking for it. Look at what they're doing now. They're doubling down on everything in response to South Park. They have no care in the world about you or what South Park is trying to really kind of put into people's minds that may not be aware about the whole Disney situation, and the list goes on. Now, sure, guys, I mean, South Park is all about balance. They took jabs at, you know, specific groups of people that are also, you know, against everything Disney and Kathleen Kennedy, which are the majority, to be honest, but they did take a couple of jabs at that, but they were pretty light, in my opinion. The main thing here in this Panderverse episode was taking jabs at Kathleen Kennedy. She was the bad guy. So, moving onwards. Now, Kennedy is reportedly extremely offended over South Park's recent parody of her, and though Bob Iger and the Disney heads are trying to create a legal case that will most likely go nowhere, Kennedy, however, is planning to convince the public that what South Park did was damaging to their Star Wars brand and to the entirety of Disney. This is exactly why Steven Knight, the writer of the Rey movie, was able to expedite his script and send it into Lucasfilm right around now. Kathleen Kennedy's assistants are already in the process of developing an even sharper response to Comedy Central this time around in an effort to stop both Parker and Stone from making more parodies on the current state of Disney and Kathleen Kennedy. Something that Parker and Stone already announced internally behind the scenes, direct, of course, to Disney, which is why both Iger and Kennedy are acting in such a relentless way right now. In addition to this, however, as it turns out, it was Kathleen Kennedy's idea that she proposed to the Disney heads to have Jimmy Kimmel of ABC to address the South Park situation on his late night show. ABC, which is run by Disney, is already passing this down to Kimmel's writing team, full of comedians and producers as well, to make this happen as soon as possible in the coming weeks. So that's another big, crucial update that we have to go over, is the fact that it was Kathleen Kennedy that made that proposal to Disney to have Jimmy Kimmel, in my opinion, the worst late night show host in my book. That's how I see things. That's just my opinion. I don't like the guy at all. But when you see how he acts, the fact that he is taking up this offer by Kathleen Kennedy and the Disney heads to address South Park and the entire situation, it goes to show you how low Disney is becoming, to the point where they have to use Kimmel to kind of use him as a face as well to call out South Park and their motives. Now again, Kathleen Kennedy at the same time, the fact that they are getting the entire Lucasfilm leadership team together, it goes to show you that she can't do everything on her own. I mean, that's pretty much apparent at this point. You got the vice president, you got the executive vice presidents, you've got the senior vice presidents getting involved in all of this. It's just ridiculous. So, at the same exact time though, guys, I would love to hear what you all have to say about the situation below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.